If you only had 10 minutes to practice piano, what should you focus your time on? How much time do you dedicate to pieces and songs, to scales, to sight reading, to music theory? In this video, I want to show you how to practice piano if you literally only had 10 minutes, and how to maximize your output in such a short amount of time. Even if you had more than 10 minutes to practice on the piano, I think this video will also be helpful for you to consider what is actually essential in piano practice. Now here's my 2 cents. If you only had 10 minutes to practice on the piano, I would suggest you to focus on just one thing. And the one thing could be perhaps 16 bars, 16 measures of one piece, or perhaps it's just scales. So in that 10 minutes, you're gonna do just 3 scales, you're gonna master it, and you just do scales. You're simply not gonna get anywhere if you spread yourself thin and do, 4 or 5 things in that 10 minutes. If you've been playing piano for a while, you know that piano practice is only effective when there's a certain amount of depth to it. So how do you maximize your output in 10 minutes? Whatever your goal for that 10 minutes is, my advice to you would be to practice in a way where your notes are 100% correct, ideally at a slower speed. Here are 4 tips I always recommend my students to achieve this accuracy in their 10 minutes of practice. First tip for you is to practice just the right hand. I often say to my students, when you're practicing just the right hand, you are not just helping the right hand, you are actually helping also the left hand to play better when you play hands together. And the reason for that is because when you hone and master your right hand, you sort of build more muscle memory and more autopilotness to your right hand. So when you play hands together later, you can allocate more of your brain power to the left hand. Tip number 2 is to practice just the left hand by itself. So similar to tip number 1, when you work on just the left hand, remember you're not just helping your left hand play better, you're helping your right hand too, because you can later then allocate more brain power to your right when you're playing together. Tip number 3 is to practice in smaller sections, and by small, I literally can mean sometimes 1 measure. In this part, I want to show you 2 measures I used to have a huge problem with. I used to always play something like this. I just wasn't quite sure of how the fingers needed to move. So after doing a lot of hand separate practice, a lot of right hand, a lot of left hand, I was ready to now put it together, but I would literally just spend something like 5 minutes just honing that little section. And if you saw, I actually took a little bit of a break. I took a little bit of a pause whenever there was a part that was likely going to trip me up. Take a little pause there, have a think before you strike. Because remember the goal here. The goal here is to have 100% note accuracy. Tip number 4 is to increase repetitions on those bits that often trip you up. If you've ever played Moonlight Sonata, you know that this little section I played in bar 57 is a part that always trips people up because there's a lot of chord changes that happens here. So this part where I played something like this, and leading into here, because there are 4 chord changes here, I find a lot of students tend to make mistakes here. They kind of make, sight reading mistakes or sort of muscle memory mistakes. So I found a really good trick here is to alter the music and repeat them more in your practice. So I repeat, let's say, each of these chords 4 times before I go to the next chord. After practicing times each of these chords by 4, I might try to reduce that to 2. And then eventually you would move it down to normal, 1. Try this one, it's a really good trick. It really helps you to master that part within minutes, rather than spending, up to 2 weeks just on this one bar. So when you sense there's always a part that trips you up, try to alter the music by practicing maybe that part a little bit more, times it by 2 or times it by 4, to master the executions needed for that part. Through these 4 tips, essentially what I'm saying to you is, it's futile in that 10 minutes to try to keep playing hands together at full speed and keep making errors. You aren't helping your hands to learn anything. In fact, you're helping your hands to practice and hone incorrect movements and making those incorrect neural pathways even stronger. My advice to you is to observe yourself very, very mindfully practicing in that 10 minutes. Prioritize correct notes every single minute of the 10 minutes and you'll be on your way to mastery. If your objective is to hone scales in this 10 minutes, the same philosophy applies. You might want to try adding a little bit of notes to ensure accuracy at all times. So let's say you want to learn, for example, E harmonic minor. You want to make sure perhaps you can do, let's say, 4 notes at a time. Try to make sure that every time you execute the scale, it is correct. You're not just kind of like bludging through and guessing as you play. Always know before you play. At the end of your scales practice, I want to challenge you to be able to play the scale 7 times correctly without any mistakes. Now it's your turn to tell me, if you only had 10 minutes to practice on the piano, what would you do? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you have other piano questions too. Happy practicing, guys, and catch you in the next video.